Fra tutti gli insegnamenti che ho ricevuto fin d'oggi,
Among all the teachings that I have received until today, all the
seguendo la
systems,
tradizione
because
del
in the
buddismo tibetano
Tibetan Buddhist
esiste
tradition, there
una
are
caratteristica particolare
there is a particular
che
feature
tanti sistemi diversi, tante
that
scuole di filosofia,
many different
pensiero di tipo
systems and different
diverso,
schools
tante tradizioni
of
diverse
thought
sono arrivate in Tibet. E una
have
delle
arrived in
qualità dei
Tibet.
tibetani
And one quality
in
of
tutti i
Tibetans
secoli
in
è
all
stata
the
quella di saper
centuries
accogliere
was to be
quello
able
che gli
to
arrivava,
welcome
mettere in
what was
meglio il
coming
meglio di ogni cosa insieme,
and to
un po' come la
take
medicina
all
tibetana.
the best of
In fin dei
everything
conti
together,
era uno dei
to make it,
re,
to
che
put it
adesso
together.
me li dimentico sempre,
Like
però
with
che è
Tibetan
NgalSo,
medicine, there was a
comunque,
king
che a un certo punto
that
si
at a
ammalò
certain time he got sick,
e lui, mentre si ammalò, invitò dei
and while he was
medici,
sick, he invited some
quindi invitò
doctors,
un importante medico dalla Cina, un
an
importante
important
medico
doctor from
dall'India,
China, an
un
important
importante
doctor from
medico che
India,
faceva medicina greca,
then also a
che veniva
Greek
dalla
doctor
Persia,
from
qualcosa del
Persia or
genere,
something like
e
that,
poi c'erano i medici originali tibetani.
and then the original Tibetan
E
doctors.
lui si fece trattare da
And
tutti
he
questi medici, poi
got
quando
treated
lui
by all
a
these
discorso
different
alla
doctors,
terra,
and when he
lui
recovered from his
all'epoca ai grandi
sickness, he
medici ha detto:
told
guarda, se volete
to
rimanere in
each
Tibet,
one of
io
these
continuo
doctors,
a pagare
look,
per
if you
voi
want to
per
stay in
esercitare la vostra
Tibet, you're
medicina
welcome. I can,
sotto il mio
we
tetto,
can pay you
eccetera,
for
eccetera.
doing your
E
profession.
questo ha fatto in modo che tutte queste tradizioni mediche
And so
crescessero in Tibet
this
e un po' di anni
made it
dopo, non mi
possible
ricordo
that
esattamente
all
quando,
these
ma
traditions were able to
dopo un
live
po' di
together in
millenni,
Tibet
dopo qualche decennio, non mi ricordo
for
esattamente,
some
comunque
decades or
si
a
creò la
century, I
medicina
don't remember.
tibetana, che è una fusione fra
So
medicina
because of
ayurveda,
this, the
medicina
Tibetan
tradizionale
medicine
cinese,
got created, which is a
medicina
fusion between
greco-persica e la
the
medicina
Chinese
indiana.
medicine, Indian medicine, which is
Quindi per
Ayurveda,
fare
and
un
also Greek,
esempio,
and Tibetan medicine.
la parte che
So
riguarda
to make an example, the part
le medicine della
that
medicina tibetana è molto più
is
elaborata che nella
about
parte ayurveda piuttosto che
drugs
la cinese, perché veniva principalmente dalla medicina persa,
is much
dove
more
c'è una
elaborated
parte che andiamo a ritrovare in
than
teoria del
the
yoga
Indian
piuttosto
than in
che
the Indian
che
because it comes
derivano
from
dalla medicina
Greek,
cinese,
and
insomma
so
tante
from
cose che
China
vanno
instead
messe un po' insieme.
comes the system of
Dobbiamo avere
meridians,
l'astrologia tibetana,
from India
che è un
Ayurveda,
insieme fra
and also with
astrologia
astrology. If we go
vedica
and look, Tibetan
e
astrology is a
astrologia
mixture of
tradizionale cinese.
Vedic
Tutti
astrology
e due
and
messi insieme.
also Chinese astrology
Ma la
put
parte
together,
tibetana molto spesso si
and
tende a
Tibetan
imposare l'uno
also.
sull'altro e nel buddismo è successo lo stesso.
And in Buddhism,
Quindi,
the same
quando è
happened
arrivato il buddismo,
in
mentre
a
in
way
altri paesi
that
prevalentemente
while in other
poi una
countries
tradizione, quindi
there was
nel
predominantly
sud-est asiatico c'è la
a
tradizione
tradition.
Theravada
So, for
principalmente,
example, in the
che poi andiamo, c'è il
In South
Mahayana
of
che
Asia,
andò
there is
verso
Theravada
lo
and,
Zen, che è il Chan, che andò verso la Cina, dalla Cina in
and
Giappone, dal
Mahayana, which
Giappone
is
andò in
Chan, that
Kenya.
then became Zen,
Quello
went
che accade
to
in
China.
Tibet fu che tutte le
And what
tradizioni che
happened in
sono
Tibet
arrivate lì sono fatte
that all the traditions
e alla
that
fine
got
si sono
there
unite.
were welcomed and
Per
they merged
questo
together.
abbiamo tutte le varie scuole
And so,
filosofiche.
because of
Nel
this, we have
buddismo c'è
all the
la parte
philosophical
mahayana, oggi conosciuta come
schools
sistema Theravada, il
inside
Vajrayana,
Buddhism,
che è unito.
Theravada, Vajrayana,
E
Mahayana,
quindi
got all merged in a
all'interno di
way.
questa storia del buddismo ci sono
And
tanti
so,
sistemi
inside of this
validi,
story of Buddhism,
che
there
uno
are many
prende per
valid
comprendere
systems,
solo
and
uno e
one
rimanere su quello,
could just take
ma si
one
potrebbe anche
of
conoscere
them
bene quello
and
che
stay on
viene
it,
uno
or
dagli
one
altri.
could take some
Fra tutti questi sistemi che
from
sono
here,
arrivati
some
in
from
Tibet di
there, from the
insegnamenti,
different
quello che a me
systems.
personalmente mi ha sempre colpito
And
molto,
what
che poi è stato successivamente
struck
sviluppato
me
proprio
particularly
con questo nome, con questa forma, viene chiamato di Lojong.
about all these teachings is Lojong.
E Lojong, Lo vuol dire mente,
Lo
Jong
means
vuol dire
mind,
allenare,
Jong means to
l'allenamento
train,
mentale, l'addestramento mentale.
which means the mind
Allenare
training.
la mente in che cosa?
To train the mind
Allenare la
in
mente
what?
ad essere una mente
To train the mind to
coerente,
be a coherent mind,
armoniosa e
harmonious
altruistica.
and
Quindi allenare
altruistic.
la mente in saggezza
And
e
so to
amore e
train the
compassione.
mind in wisdom
Questi sono i due punti
and
principali.
love and compassion. These are the
Tutto questo parte da
two
un
main
principio
points.
iniziale
And it all starts from a
che
basic
si va a
principle,
collegare con il mantra
which
di Buddha
connects to the mantra of Buddha Shakyamuni, which we did at the beginning, which is Om Maha Muni. Muni means capacity. So the mantra in its own could be translated as Om, could be translated as body, speech and mind, which is one of the ways to translate Om. The Om syllable is made of 3 sounds.
A con U diventa O con Ma diventa Om. Per questo che per esempio in alcune tradizioni prevalentemente indiane, quando si fa la recitazione lunga del Om, non è Om, è Aum.
So in some traditions, the long recitation of Om is Aum, where the sound opens because it's made of 3 sounds, which are A, U, e Ma, and Ma, which together become Om, and in the long recitation Aum. So there are many ways to give an interpretation to these 3 parts, and one of the ways is the body, speech and mind, which is also the being. So the body is the physical part, the speech is what we emanate to the world, is what we communicate, and it's not necessarily verbal, but it could be the energy that a person is able to emanate, also what one writes. And so there is also the subtle, the very subtle speech. And so there are different ways to emanate, but also to perceive. And when we receive an information from someone else, it could also be in a subtle way. And then there is mind. Body, speech and mind are always inseparable, and they are the essence of the being. And through the various lives also there is body, speech and mind on a very subtle level, which goes on, but is a different argument. And so Muni means capacity. Maha Muni, great capacity. Shakya Muni, the sage of the Shakyas, or could also be translated as supreme capacity. And Soha, be it so. So be it. Without getting too much into details, the mantra of Buddha Shakyamuni Muni shows us the path to enlightenment, starting from the fact that we have a potential. Remembering that it's fundamental to recognize in ourselves our capacity. Because if I do not recognize what I can realize, then I will not put energy to make it to realize it. And so we have Om Muni, Maha Muni, the first 2 capacities. The first one relates to loving oneself. Is the capacity to love oneself. I was saying that there are 2 ways of reading the mantra, where the first one is where the first 2 munis are related. Okay, the first muni is related to loving oneself, and the second one to the correct vision of seeing reality. And so by saying loving oneself, it's about discerning what's good for me and what's harmful for me, and so to nourish, to cultivate what's good for me and to abandon what's harmful. And so the first capacity is to feel well, to take good care of ourselves. and for how strange it could be, it seems it's possible to take good care of ourselves and to reach a good state of body and mind. I say for how strange it seems because many of us have a little bit lost hope in a way. And this possibility starts from a reason. That is, we transform ourselves, body and mind transforms itself as a consequence of the interactions. So if we keep a certain kind of sane interaction, then the body and the mind transform in a sane way. So in the same way, when we look at a person that has a healthy body, we say, "Oh, how beautiful," as if he came from nowhere. But in reality, how did you make it so? So, for example, speaking with my grandpa, which is 100 years old, he kept on working until 92 years old. And because he had a factory, he wanted to keep on working, manage things. And everybody that looks at him says, "Oh, how healthy he is for being 100 years old." But until a little while ago, he was every morning going to the park for a walk. An example from the past years. One day he goes to the doctor, says that he has like something like a tumor, and then nobody knows anything anymore, and then they ask him, how is it? Oh, no problem, because just keep on going forward and don't make problems bigger than they are. So when a person is sane, does it come from nowhere, or is it the result of some choices? My grandpa, also with my grandmother, they had a passion for Dolomites, and they were going there every summer. And once I was there with my grandpa, and he was there with the iPhone and was playing a game. No, Grandpa, what are you doing? I am doing this little game. But do you like it? No. Then why are you doing it? You know, when you get old, the brain cells, the short span memory cells get lost, so you're left only with the long-term memory cells. And so what I'm doing is to train my memory to not lose it. And then one says, look how beautiful, he has a great memory. I didn't come from nowhere. So what I want to say is that we have the capacity to cultivate a healthy and sane body and mind, a sane life. The first capacity tells us that our state of physical, mental suffering is not because we are the victim of something or someone, but because until now we couldn't interact in an healthy way for all the reasons. So for some aspects, yes, for some aspects, no. So the first capacity tells us we can be well. It depends by the choices that we take, by our way of thinking, by our way of acting, speaking, the lifestyle choices that we take, eating, what we do in our everyday life, our emotional attitude, and so on, all this put together is the first capacity. And the first step is to look at ourselves and to tell us, I can do this. I trust myself.
Qualcuno mi dirà, Lama, tu lo dici così, ma non mi conosci.
Lama, you say like that, but you don't know me. I'm such a wreck. If you were me, I don't think you would say that. No, actually, I trust that it's possible. One of the examples that it's from the life of Buddha.
Mi chiedo scusa per la
Sorry, I really don't remember the names. I also try to memorize the name and all the sentence from the sutra. Padamani Shejashing means the father and the mother are to be killed. Because there was this one king, for many reasons in his life, he killed his parents. A part of the story seems to say that the parents were very sick, so he was kind of doing a sort of euthanasia. But what I remember well of the story is that he killed the parents. And after killing them, and inside of all these actions that are described by Buddha as the worst actions, these are 5 actions, very, very grave, and one of them is killing the parents, like one of the worst things you could do. And so after killing the parents, he felt very well, he went into, felt very, very bad, went into depression, and look what I've done, and he meets the Buddha. Buddha realizes that he was not able to have the self-esteem to actually get out of this situation. So the Buddha told him the father and the mother had to be killed. And he says, what do you mean? It's not possible. But then if the Buddha says so, there must be a reason. And so he relaxes, and the sense of guilt gets away, and the Buddha comes closer to him, and he starts following the path that he shows you, and after a while he realized that the Buddha meant actually that by the father and the mother he meant the desire and the aversion that are to be eliminated. So this is an example of how the Buddha was speaking with everyone according to their necessity. And in front of this, he came out of this, and he became a disciple of Buddha, and he reached the state of anarat, getting out of the samsara cycle of suffering and reaching a state of peace. And this is an example for someone that made one of the worst things that one can do. He managed to get out of his suffering. Also another example is from Milarepa. If you haven't heard of him, I suggest to read the story of his life. It's very beautiful. He's one of the most famous meditators in the story of Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. He was born from a quite rich family, and when he was still a kid, his father died, and by the rules of the time at which he lived, that when the father of the family was dying, the goods of the family were given to another person if the male child was not adult yet. And so it was given to an uncle. And this uncle was keeping the child, Milarepa, as a sort of slave also. And when he gets older, then the mother goes to the uncle, and she tells him, now he's grown older, he can have what expects him, but the uncle didn't do this. So at certain point, Milarepa decided to leave and to study black magic. And he became so good at this because he has such a strong hate that then, when at a certain point, he decided to come back, and he destroyed the whole village. But when he came back and saw the whole village destroyed, he felt really bad, and so then he went to look for a master, and then he met Marpa, which treats him very bad at the beginning, but he has this total determination to get out of his state of depression, of feeling all the guilt, and so with a path of practice, of meditation and actions, he got purified and became one of the greatest meditators in the history, and the greatest master. And also, up to now, is one of the most important yogis. Usually is depicted with a hand like this on the ear. Yes, in general, a green body, because it is said that he lived for years eating only nettle.
Rappresentazione di Milarepa. Quindi quello è un altro esempio che ti dai da fare veramente.
So that's another example that if you really put yourself into it, even if you destroy the whole village, you can do it. Another story that also talks about this is the story of Anguni Lamala, which literally means necklace of fingers. And so for this person, it happens that his parents died when he was very little, and someone puts in his head that somehow his parents got trapped in hell, and that the only way to save his parents and to not also end up there himself when he died is to make a sort of suffering, a sacrifice to a particular deity, 1,000 human lives. And so he starts killing people, and for each person that he kills, he takes a finger and he puts them in a necklace, and he gets to 999, and everyone is terribly scared of him. And one day, as he is in the middle of the woods, he sees the Buddha, and he says, finally, the last one. And so he goes to him, and he does everything possible to kill him, and he starts running to catch him, but then the Buddha is walking very slowly, but he never manages to catch him. And then he says, stop, I cannot reach you. And so the Buddha tells him, look, I am still the one that is running, it's you. And so by this meant, I am already out of my cycle of suffering, the one that is not is you. And so in a way he feels the love from Buddha, and he opens up and he tells his story, his feelings, and so the Buddha welcomes him, and this person becomes a good disciple. and gradually it becomes a great meditator and practitioner.
Muore alla fine della vita. Sono due eventi belli. Uno, l'ultimo non tanto bello, però quello di prima sì. Un giorno camminando insieme con Buddha per
And one day, as he was walking with Buddha,
c'è una donna che è
he,
incinta, sta per
he meets
se capito bene, comunque
a woman who is pregnant and is very, very much in pain.
aiutarla a superare il suo dolore.
And he asks the Buddha to give her blessings and to relieve her from pain.
A questo punto Buddha va da Angulimala e dice: "Fai tu."
And the Buddha goes to Angulimala and tells him, "Go on, you do it." But what do you mean, me? I am an assassin. I killed 999 people. I am a terrible, horrible person. How can I heal or give blessings to another person? No, you do it. Go on. You put the hands on top of her and you say, by the power of the truth, if it's true that I killed all these people because of my own ignorance, and that today I punish myself because for doing that, then so it's true that this woman gets healed. And so he goes on and tells this, and she actually gets healed. And another story is that they go to a village where he killed hundreds of people, and they see him, they recognize him, and they start beating him until they kill him. But then he realizes that his death was the result of his previous actions, so he died in a peaceful state.
Sapendo che quello che faceva non andava bene perché lui aveva quel peso addosso. È riuscito a mettersi in pace col suo passato.
So he managed to get at peace with his past, and so also consequently with the present and the future.
Quindi quando nella vita di Buddha si raccontano, sono diversi aneddoti, questi sono alcuni che ho detto di persone che hanno avuto durante la loro vita.
In the life of Buddha there are many anecdotes of people that made very bad actions, but following a healthy, sane way, they managed to find a state of peace and equilibrium and balance, and also certain kind of purity. And so the first capacity is that we can reach a state of well-being by loving ourselves, which is possible for everyone. But as long as we don't really believe it, then we can't. So if we do not have the total trust that I can reach a state of well-being and that it depends on me and my actions, then I will keep on blaming the world.
Perché ci sono l'inquinamento, perché ci sono tutti i problemi.
Because they send me a lot of stuff, there are a lot of problems around me, I live in a crazy society. Well, in part it's true, but it's not only that. Predominantly is up to us.
Perciò, prima capacità, posso prendere cura di me stesso.
So first capacity is I can take care of myself, I can love myself, I can do it. We all can do it. And as I said before, one of the first steps in this process of loving oneself is to stop victimizing oneself. But I don't like it. It doesn't really matter. I don't know if it has ever happened to you. This thing will really be good for me, but I don't like it. One of the steps in loving oneself is not to make a sacrifice, but to distinguish what's good for me and what's harmful for me, and to give priority to what's good for me in spite of what's harmful. Which doesn't mean that I can't do what I like, but it has to make me well.
Questo è un livello fondamentale in cui noi partiamo e diciamo: se io mi trovo davanti a dover scegliere fra una cosa che mi piace,
so if I find myself in front of something that I like and something something that I like but that's harmful for me, and something that I don't like but that's good for me, which one should I choose? The one that eventually is good for me. Do we do it? Sometimes we do, sometimes not. The first capacity is we can do it. We can trust ourselves that we can do it. To have an healthy way, physically, mentally, emotionally. And the second capacity, to love others. Expand the feeling of love that we have towards ourselves and to include the others. Which doesn't mean that I love the others and so I abandon myself. No, I keep on loving myself, but I include the other, and the happiness of the other is as important as mine. This is the second capacity that we have. Great capacity that we have is the coherent view of reality.
Viviamo il mondo in un modo abbastanza incoerente.
Because today we live our world in quite an incoherent way. I make 2 quick examples without opening a door, otherwise we stay here for months.
Il mondo in cui noi viviamo,
the world we live in, everything that we see, touch, hear, feel, ourselves included, is constantly in transformation, or is it a static reality? Does someone have any doubt? Do we all agree that it's in constant transformation? A person, well, think about any person that you see next to you today. Is an entity, a static entity, or in constant transformation? Okay, so we say bye today and we meet again next week. What do you think you're going to meet? The same person or someone that has changed, like spontaneously, without philosophizing? So you go away from here, come back 1 week. You expect to find the same place or a bit different, like the same place. In a few words, the reality that surrounds us, even if impermanent, appears to us as permanent, and we relate to the impermanent reality as if it was permanent. This is a form of ignorance. We grasp to the existence of a permanent reality which is actually impermanent. The wisdom, the correct view of reality here would be to relate with reality as impermanent, as being impermanent. Another example. Do we live in an objective or subjective reality?
No? Qua possiamo stare a discutere per delle ore.
We can stay here and discuss for hours. I make 2 examples. One, when we experience something, when we see something, do we experience it in the same way or in a different way? But does this mean that it's all in our head, or is there an external reality? So there was this story with Geshe. with names. I don't know if it's age, but I'm getting worse with names. So it was a geshe from. He came to Brazil to a center which is not a center related to ours, but things go in a bad way, and after a few months the monastery closes up and he doesn't know where to go, and so he goes back to Nepal. And hears of us, and Geshe lo Santempa, and gets welcomed by my mother to the center. I was in Brazil at the time, like 91, and he stays there for 6 months. And one day there was a ceremony at the center, and inside of this object you put a bit of tea, a bit of alcohol, and there wasn't the object, the physical object, and so he asked for some alcohol and for some water, because I'm hot. And they bring him 2 glasses, one very simple, one very beautiful, and he takes one of the 2 glasses and he starts drinking, thinking that it was water, but it was pink, grappa, liquor. So what happens is that by living in India, he has an habit that when they drink, they immediately open the throat without putting in the mouth before. So he drank a whole glass of liquor in a shot. And he was 100% certain that it was water, but it was not. And so, is there an external reality? Well, yes, because it's not because I believe that it's water that it becomes water. And so that day then he made a ceremony in 3 minutes and then went on to sleep, because he never drank in his own life. He drank a few liters of water because it was burning up. So this is to say that we live in a subjective reality, and the external reality exists, but we perceive and we interact with the external reality in a different way. A quite simple example. Simple maybe is not the right word, but clear. Imagine to ask the person that is close next to you, can you see the Lama? Okay? What would the answer be? Yes. Well, it depends on where you're sitting, okay? Then you ask the second question, which Lama? If someone asks you this, then you say, oh, are you crazy? How many Lamas do you see? But when I ask you, do you see a person, implicitly you're saying, are you seeing the person that I am seeing or not? So when you ask the person next to you, do you see the Lama? What are you asking in reality? If the person is seeing what you are seeing. So if we have to philosophize a bit, then we would say no, because seeing is an interdependence of things, the light coming to your eyes. So for example, if I take away the glasses and I don't see well, the other person doesn't need the glasses, we see very differently. Then the attributed value. So what I see is the same thing as what you see, or is similar. In a few words, even if we don't need much to realize that we live in a subjective reality, does it appear to us as being objective or as being subjective? When I ask you, if do you see the person that I see, it's not because I'm saying you are the same as me. And so the reality that I perceive appears to me as being objective when it's not, and this is ignorance. And so I grasp to reality in an incoherent way. I grasp and relate to each thing as being subjective when it's not. And so wisdom is to see and interact with what is subjective as being subjective. And this is the great capacity. The capacity of reaching harmony, because this brings harmony and takes away a lot of problems. The supreme capacity. A reference is made to Buddha Shakyamuni, who taught what in the West is called Tantra. The more correct way of saying is Vajrayana or secret mantra. But it's this part of the path where it's possible to make a deep transformation by using not only the mind but also the body and the environment to make a transformation, and also in relatively short times. But we can also do this, we also have this capacity. And so we have capacity, but we need to trust. We need to look at ourselves and to tell us, I can do it. I can love others, but first I need to love myself, and I can do it.
All'interno di tutto ciò, quando parliamo della nostra propria capacità,
when we talk about our own capacity in the Lojong starts with
da un'attitudine ignorante a un'attitudine coerente, saggia.
From the assumption that we can change our attitude from being selfish to altruistic. And in the path to make this change, there are many points of practice. I think it's the fourth point, which is called transforming adverse conditions into the path. And it's a fundamental point because I question, okay, if I have to wait for the time in life where there are no problems, so to practice the spiritual path and Dharma, how much do I have to wait? And then, when that moment comes, I am so taken by the pleasure of the time, of the moment, that I will not practice. But when is it the most difficult to practice? When everything is going well, or when in time of great difficulty? I think it's more difficult to practice when everything is going well and what joy. You don't really feel like going and look into your shadows and look at yourself in the face. Just let me be for once, that I can relax. And so, if we have to wait the moment with the perfect conditions, then we will never do it. But when we live difficult times, because there are in life moments that are difficult, moments less difficult, can this be a condition that turns in our favor, which means that it can increase love, wisdom, patience are qualities, or it can also become a condition that does the opposite. And so the negative qualities, anger, hatred, envy, and so on. And here it's really important to really understand and face this part of the practice to transform the adverse conditions. And it's a very important practice because there are adverse conditions and there will always be. But if I can use them to my favor, then I can do what is called transforming the adverse conditions into the path. If I can transform something that takes me down and makes me more sad and angry, and if it becomes something through which I can develop my qualities, it's making me a favor, and being able to do so, it's wonderful. And to do so, the first step is to have trust in oneself. I can do it. And together with it comes a sentence from Buddha Shakyamuni: I am my own protector, I am my own enemy. Anyone around me can do a lot of things towards me. They can harm my body, they can harm my image, they can harm the material things, they can try to harm me in many different ways, but no one has the capacity to make me have an internal attitude that it's negative if I don't want to. The only being that is able to make me feel hatred and anger is myself. No one has that capacity. And so I have the capacity to say, oh, that thing, I will not do it. I want to cultivate that quality. No one has the power to stop me from loving another person. Even the other person, by doing the worst things in the world, does not have that power. I can choose, or I can still not be ready to love that person, but it's my own thing. That doesn't depend on the other. And so adverse conditions are there, and they will be there. But when we experience adverse conditions, what I hear around is, look what happens to me, how unlucky I am, always to me, this and that. And sincerely, of all the people I have met up to now, they all have a lot of problems. And when I think about my masters, they had huge problems. And so, it's not that Lama Gangchen Rinpoche had an easy life. From the point of view of the conditions and situations that he lived, and also. And I can talk about so many other people.
Fare tanti di quegli esempi.
And when we find ourselves in front of an adverse situation, we can victimize ourselves, try to find the guilty.
Possiamo dividere le situazioni avverse in tre tipi. Mettiamole così. 4, dai.
We can split adverse situations predominantly in 3. The one is where one makes a mistake. I don't know, I'm driving, I make I make a mistake because I'm distracted and I have an accident. I have a hard time to blame someone else. So I really made a mistake and I leave a problem. And there are situations where there is a more general situation, for example, economical crisis, that it's not about me, it's about the society in which I live. There is like climatic change, and so there is a disaster of some kind, and I find myself in the middle of it. It's not very a thing that is specifically mine, it's more like collective. And then there are the situations where someone does something towards us in an explicit way, direct. So another person, for anger, envy, hatred, whatever, acts in an aggressive way, violent way, and so on, going against, let's say, ourselves, a specific person. And in all these situations that one can live, and then there are the situations where one can't really attribute to what happened. And so the point is that in all these situations, none of them have really the power of making us feel in a certain specific way or the other. And the question that I ask myself in my life, first capacity, what do I want to be? Because in loving myself,
io devo fare quello che a me mi fa.
I have to do what's good for me, and I need to avoid what's harmful for me. A few years ago, many years have passed, I think like 10 or 15, was a few years before starting the construction of the temple. I found myself in front of a situation where a person does a sort of threat to me. And being put at a threat, it's something that it's really annoying for me, because if you threaten me, then I will probably do the opposite on purpose. I was always a bit like this. So I find myself in front of this person, and he also treats me a bit like a stupid person. I don't want to get into details now. It was connected with a construction. Look, then at least you tell me things clearly. You don't go around. And so at the end, I get really angry. Like something comes inside of me, and I get close to the other person. I raise my voice. Probably lasted like 30 seconds. Then I calm down. I stayed a bit like that, and then the situation gets a bit weird. And then finished, when the situation is finished, I get out. I stay with a tension here, and I was not used to it. And for my luck, anger is not my weak point. I thank my previous lives. Was not the effort of this one. And so I was not used to getting angry. And I saw that I was feeling so bad, and I started walking in Abbagnano. And I really say to myself, it doesn't matter what happens, it's not a good reason to get angry. Because can you imagine, like, if 30 seconds of anger did this to me, then after a while one doesn't even realize anymore, and you get really hurt. And so I took this commitment. So if we look in the text of Dharma from Nagarjuna, or when they talk about hatred and aggressivity, anger, they say that it has like a capacity to destroy what's virtuous and positive in a terrible way. So I ask myself, you in front of me act in a bad way and you start to threaten me. That is your choice and I'm sorry for you. But I love myself and I don't let myself to be taken away from this feeling which eventually was harming me. And so, sorry, but selfishly speaking, I want to keep my own peace. Because if I react in that way, then I'm not giving victory to the other person if I don't get angry. I am making a conscious choice to take care of myself. Is this clear? Because getting angry is harmful for myself. Physically, a person when is angry, what does the body manifest as? A state of balance, of calmness, or one of the easiest ways to see whether emotions are positive or negative is to look at what happens in the body. That speaks a lot. And so the first thing is, whatever happens, I need to have a conduct that's good for me and that's not harmful for the other. And then at a practical level, you can find a solution for things. But I don't take a path where I harm myself. So if I can keep this coherence, then the adverse condition comes to my favor because I can cultivate patience. I nourish my values, my sane values. For example, if I have clarity that whatever happens, there will be no reason so that I will hate you. Because in the end, I know that what you do is guided by your own ignorance. And I really desire for you to stop suffering and to stop following your ignorance. And so inside this awareness, the ones one tries to cultivate every day by saying the limited meditations, when is it the moment to really put it into practice? When one of these beings that we prayed for so many times that will not be in suffering and so on, when this being spits in our eyes, okay, may all beings, you're also inside, included in them. But how beautiful that I can live that, because until I live that, I stay in a may all beings that it's a bit superficial, conceptualized, idealized. When can I really face myself and see if I can really go beyond myself? When the other spits in my own eye, or in both of them, or worse. And so, when I find myself in a situation where there is aversion, okay, well, the next time I come close to you, I come like a security distance and I take practical measures, but I work on myself to not fall into the trap of hatred, of anger, of reacting, and it's a wonderful opportunity. Because as long as everything is fine, my own shadows, hidden shadows, my own anger, my own selfishness, which is hidden, I can hide in such a beautiful way. We ourselves sometimes think that we are such lovely people, altruistic, and we are sometimes. But there is this part of selfishness that cannot hide in an incredible way sometimes. But when someone comes and hits us, there is a wonderful opportunity to make what was hidden to come out and to say, okay, I don't want you, I'm not following you. Because when it comes out, if we try to block it, it's worse. But if we see it and we welcome it and we say, but I don't follow you, it goes away much more weak than what it came. And in order to do this, I need an adverse condition. Otherwise, how can I? And in front, and so according to the Lojong, you say that our worst enemies are in the end our best friends. And another reason is that if I feel bad about something, is that something makes resonates with a conflict or with something that I need to take care of inside of myself. And I need to add an aspect on this, that the adverse situations for which we are not ready to deal with in a healthy, sane way, first of all, we need to take distance from, because it doesn't mean that we are ready to deal with any situation. And so when we see that there are situations that are difficult and we cannot leave them by adding more anger, more hatred, rancor, we need to at least temporarily take distance from that situation to then be able to reflect and but I assure you that there are many situations in the daily life that we do have the capacity to deal with in the same way. But we need to be willing to do it and to put the effort, because an effort is really required. The spontaneous reaction is to go against, to react in an unhealthy way. But if we stop, if we breathe, we can consciously act in a sane way. And when we can, it's a great victory, and it's definitely possible. And so, adverse situations, one, are an opportunity for ourselves to cultivate some qualities that we want to develop. It's easy to practice patience when everything is going fine. It's easy to say that I love everyone when everyone is nice with me. Is it? But when I say may all beings, also those ones, yes. Everyone is everyone.
Però per farlo davvero non è ovvio.
But in order to do it really with sincerity, it's not obvious.
Sia la parte di coltivare amore, pazienza, generosità.
And so we need to practice our path in the 5 primary conditions,
che sono,
which are with our family,
con le persone con cui conviviamo,
with people with whom we live with, and before this friends come, so it's family, friends, people with whom we live, work, and people that we deal with in everyday life, then people to whom we did something good and in turn we received harm.
C'è un'avversione verso quella persona e c'è una ragione, secondo noi, e altri esseri,
and other beings to which we have aversion and we don't really know why. And it's here that we need to practice, because it's easy to stay there and say, oh, I love everyone, may all beings have happiness and its causes, because universal love and here and there, karuna, compassion, and then I say, I love everyone except for these 5. It doesn't really work. And so the question that I ask myself, and sorry if I put it in a quite a selfish way, because eventually it is. At the beginning it is, but then you transcend. To me, hatred, anger, rancor, do they do me well or do they hurt me? To me, comprehension, harmony, love, does it do me well or bad? So what do I want to cultivate? Because if I am selfish, then may I at least do it well, may I at least do what's really good for me. And if I find myself in a complex situation, it's true that all the phenomena are empty of intrinsic existence, except for my own problems, because they are really objective, not subjective at all. It's not like the law of karma and we talk for hours, and because the karma, everything that you do will bring results. And then when you live something good, oh, look, my own beautiful karma, and when something bad happens, it's your fault. Let's remember, law of karma. Karma means action. I cannot experience a result for which I didn't create a cause. It means no one, not even a Buddha, for saying, has the capacity to make me experience something for which me myself didn't create the causes, in the good or in the bad. And luckily that it's so. Because if others had the capacity to make me experience something, then the ones that are able to make me experience good things, so that what are you waiting for? Where is all the compassion in the world?
Che io faccia il bravo per farmi del bene. Invece si dice che se si mette sulla bilancia il potere di tutti i Buddha,
it is said that if you put on a balance all the Buddhas
neanche tutti i Buddha messi insieme
put together,
hanno la capacità di farvi sperimentare qualcosa per il quale io stesso non abbia creato.
So this means that all the Buddhas put together do not have the capacity to make me experience something for which I didn't put the causes. Not the neighbor, the children, the wife. So what I live is the result of the causes that I created, summed to the conditions of the present. Yes, there are the internal conditions and the external conditions. The experience of the present moment, my feelings, my sensation, how I perceive the world is the result of the causes that I created in the past, summed to the conditions of the present. So the internal conditions are my body and mind in the present moment. my physical state, my thoughts. The external conditions are the choices of the others, the interactions of the others. So in the present moment, what the other does, does it have an effect on what I experience? Yes, as a condition, but not as a cause. So it's what the others do, sum to what how I feel internally, that creates the cause. And so in general we experience what are actually conditions as causes.
Ok? Perciò
so it's a bit like if I go against the law and do something against the law, and someone comes to bring me a fine, what would you say if I get mad with the person that brings me the fine? Well, he's doing his job and he comes to me and he gives me a fine, and so I blame him. But is he the cause? The police officer, is he the cause or the condition? But then he would say, but if the police officer wouldn't give it to me, then...
Quando qualcuno viene e ci porta la multa,
so when he comes and brings the fine, in reality, I can be in accordance or not with the fine and with the law. Well, also in these times, in these days, we are living a very strange situation. For a normative, doesn't make any sense. But I am very joyous to put it into act, because to live in a place where the law exists is that you need to respect it, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not. And in this specific case, in the center, we made some road works. There was a terrace in Abbagnano, 80 meters long. The earth was deposited as we were doing the works. And originally like a pendency, a slope, and so it needed to, after the work we made it more flat because it was more convenient. And no, they decided that we had to keep the slope and to bring that the exceeding earth to the dumpster. And this is one of the adverse conditions that with effort we transform into the path. And it's with all sincerity that I say this. It's not just as a way of saying. For me, the fact that there are laws and that you need to respect them, because there are also countries where the laws are like not really solid. And so, if you live in a place where the law exists, then you need to respect it and do it also, try to do it with joy. And so, even if I don't agree, I respect it. Because I think that to live in a place where there is law, it's the best for everyone. And when we connect this with karma, with what we said before, is that the condition is that someone made a report for that, but the cause is that if I didn't put the earth there, then that this wouldn't have happened.
Una condizione. La causa è che il materiale è stato messo lì anche
And
se
so
non
the cause is that the
stato messo
material
dove doveva.
was placed where it shouldn't have been placed, and so it needs to be removed. And I cannot blame the condition.
Non so se è chiaro questo.
I don't know if this is clear,
Perché la nostra tendenza è
because our own tendency is, but if that person didn't make the report, we would have realized there was a little bit of
ma se io devo mettere vicino del se,
but if I have to put ifs, then if I didn't put the earth there, even if they reported, then nothing would have happened.
condizione, quando è presente la condizione ma manca la causa, il risultato non c'è. Ok? Perciò quando io vivo qualcosa di brutto,
So when I leave something bad,
l'errore che facciamo di solito è che
the
noi
mistake that
vediamo la
I
persona che agisce intorno
we
a
often
noi,
do
la
is that
situazione
we
intorno a
see
noi, che è
the
la
person
condizione. Noi vediamo
that
come se
acts
fosse
towards
la
me and the situation around me, we see it as the cause. We responsabilize ourselves and we
facendo che cosa?
place ourselves against the other, making our being worse.
Invece, se c'è una cosa che secondo me è importante è le mie
But instead,
responsabilità.
if there is a thing that I think it's important, is to take my responsibilities. I made a mistake, I fix it,
Io sia d'accordo o meno.
whether I agree with it or not.
Perciò,
And so,
quando noi riusciamo a avere queste attitudini nella vita, ma sai
when we manage to have this attitude in life,
quanta sofferenza in meno,
we
quanto odio in meno.
save ourselves a lot of problems, a lot of suffering, hate.
È un po' più grosso la cosa di
Because this is a bigger example,
se andiamo nella vita di tutti i giorni.
but if we go into everyday life,
Di vivere una cosa sgradevole perché qualcun altro
has it ever happened to you to experience something unpleasant because of the other? And the other person is nothing but a condition. And when I am able to be aware of this, then I can transform that various condition into the path. Because instead of reacting with hate, I react with a sense of responsibility, with patience. Another aspect, we are here hours and hours and days talking about the correct view of reality. How many times have I made the example of the leaf that is falling as it's perfect where it falls, and of life as an equation, and that is perfect the way it is, but then when something happens then whether we don't like, we blame the other. Because what happens is that I live in an interdependent reality. What happens is what happens, but I have free will, and how I interact with it, it's up to me. And it's that very subtle spot that we direct our being. Very, very subtle moments. Most intimate part of ourselves, where we can choose, do I go this way or that way? Do I react this way or that way? Do I let myself to be taken away by this or not? And inside of this there is something of which I talked about last week, which I want to shortly take back again, that it's important in all of this to be able to accept to be incoherent. Because if we live in a situation where we feel like some wrong is done to us, it's not like we say, oh, how beautiful. But at the same time, we have the awareness of not wanting to take a certain path with a certain route. And so I find myself in an internal conflict. And our tendency in front of this internal conflict is to do one thing or the other. instead, it's not really like that.
Io posso molto bene accogliere
I can very well
che c'è della frustrazione,
welcome that there is frustration, that there is anger,
che c'è dell'invidia, della
or
gelosia,
envy,
della paura,
jealousy,
quello che
fear,
sia.
whatever,
C'è della inaccettazione,
unacceptance.
però c'è anche dell'accettazione, c'è anche della
But on the
consapevolezza,
other
c'è
hand,
anche
there is
dell'amore,
also
c'è anche del
acceptance,
rispetto,
love,
c'è anche del senso di
respect,
responsabilità.
sense of responsibility.
Non è 100% uno
It's
o
not
100%
100%
l'altro,
one
c'è un
or
po'
the
di
other.
tutti.
It's a bit of the two.
E quando io mi permetto di
And
accogliere
when I allow myself
sia uno che
to
l'altro, o
welcome
anche un
both,
altro ancora, perché non
or
è che necessariamente
also
siamo
another
binari,
one, because we're
possiamo
not
avere
necessarily
più
binary.
sentimenti,
We can have more feelings.
può essere 20 di qua,
It can
10
be
di là,
20 here,
50
10
di lì,
there,
eccetera.
50,
Ma
50
anche
there.
se c'è solo un
But
5%
even
di un sentimento
if there is
virtuoso
only
e riguarda quella
5% of
stessa
virtuous
situazione,
feeling of
quando noi
in a
permettiamo
certain
di
situation,
accogliere
when we
ognuno di
allow
quelli due
ourselves to
verbi
embrace
e di
each
dare
one
lo
of them
spazio perché ognuno
and
possa esistere
to give them a
innanzitutto,
space where each
poi
one of
dopo io
them can
posso
exist
scegliere
first of all,
quale di questi
then I
voglio
can decide which
e quale
one
di questi
I
voglio
want to
negare.
nourish and which one I don't want to nourish.
Se io vado a
If I
negare a me stesso
negate to
questo
myself
elemento,
the feeling that I have,
faccio finta
that I
che
feel,
non c'è.
pretending that it doesn't exist,
Quello lì da sotto
that
lavora
feeling
ancora di più e farà di tutto per
works
prendere il sopravvento.
underneath and does all that it
Questo
can
mi fa venire in mente un film,
to overwhelm us.
Dogville, molto
This
bello,
makes me think
in
about
cui
a movie,
l'attrice è la Nicole Kidman.
Dogville, with
Ed è un
Nicole
film
Kidman,
che è tutto fatto con il scenario che non ci sono le
and
pareti, le
it's all
porte,
made with a
molto bello,
scenario where there are no
molto
walls
bello il
and
film.
doors.
E mi
Very
ricordo che c'è
beautiful
questa
movie, and I
ragazza nel film
remember
che
this
è in quella
girl in the
situazione,
movie, in
una
that
situazione
situation,
particolare di
particular
fragilità,
situation of
e durante
fragility,
tanto tempo è
and
lì e subisce tanta violenza.
he receives a lot of violence
Subisce
during
tanta
quite a long
violenza,
time.
però lei essendo in una
But
situazione di
by
fragilità
being in a
che non
fragile
risponde,
situation, she doesn't
le
answer, she doesn't
persone
do
che
anything,
agiscono con
and the
violenza
people that
verso
are
di lei,
acting with violence
in
towards
realtà
her,
c'è
in
tanto
reality,
abuso nascosto come se fosse un aiuto. E la
they
gente, tra virgolette, l'aiuta, ma in realtà abusa di lei.
so people are
Quindi lei
pretending to
subisce
help, but
dell'abuso
actually are abusing of her.
vestito da aiuto per tanto tempo. Situazione molto pesante.
So a very heavy
E
situation.
quando alla fine del film
And when at the end
c'è questa
of the
scena
movie
finale,
there is this final
dove per tutto
scene
il film tu la guardi e dici, ma è come un
where
bodhisattva.
for the whole movie you look at her
Che
and you
essere
say,
buona,
ah, she's like a
come è buona con
bodhisattva,
tutti, come è
what a
gentile
beautiful
con
being,
tutti,
she's
come
so
tutti
kind
la
with
trattano male,
everyone,
questa qua non
and
reagisce
everyone is
mai, non
so
dice mai una
treating her
disgustosa
so
cosa, non
badly, and
dice
she never
mai niente
reacts.
altro piuttosto che alla fine dei
And
tratti
so
cambia
eventually
situazione perché era
the
figlia di
situation changes
guarda,
because she's
arriva
the
lei
daughter of
e
the
con la freddezza guarda tutti e dice
mafioso boss, and so
e io
they
capito.
come and she
E quando
tells
mi
them
ricordo che ho
very
visto questa scena,
calmly,
mi
firmly,
ha colpito perché ho
kill them all.
detto, guarda che
And when this scene
quando uno
happened,
ha una parte in sé, e con questo io non
it
credo che
struck
la
me
sua gentilezza
because
fosse finta,
I don't believe that her
ma la parte sua
kindness was
dell'odio,
fake, but
della
her
rabbia, di quello che ha
part
vissuto,
of
è
anger,
come se
of
non
hatred,
potesse
of what she
manifestarsi,
lived.
fosse finta,
It's
fosse
like
finta.
she couldn't
Però
manifest it,
quella
so
di
she
sotto
pretended that it didn't exist.
lavora,
And so
lavora, lavora. Appena
underground,
c'è
that worked and
l'opportunità
worked.
per prendere il
And as
sopravvento
soon
da quella
as there
parte,
was an
lì
opportunity for that
tutto
part
cambia.
to
Perché non abbiamo mai visto
take
storie di
control, then it
filosofo
takes
oppure storie
everything.
di persone che agiscono con estrema violenza verso qualcuno a cui volevano anche bene?
And
Può
so,
succedere.
can it
E
happen
non è
also
che non
that
vi vuole bene, ma viene
a
preso dall'odio,
person
dalla rabbia.
acts in a bad way
Quando noi
against
non
people
sappiamo accogliere
that they
per
say they love
conoscere i nostri
and that they do
sentimenti
love?
anche
Well,
quelli
this
non
also
belli,
happens.
non sappiamo
And that's
vedere
because we
l'ombra,
need to
raccogliere
realize
l'ombra, ma
that we need
nutrire
to
la luce.
accept also the feelings that are not good
Prima o poi
and to
quella roba lì
choose
lavora,
that
lavora, lavora, e a un certo
we
punto
need
scoppia.
to cultivate
Perciò dinanzi alle
the light,
situazioni, nelle situazioni
the
avverse,
light aspects,
dobbiamo anche
and to
saper
abandon
accogliere le nostre
the shadowy
contraddizioni,
aspects.
saper vedere l'ombra
But we need to
in
welcome the
modo da
shadows
trattare la
first
nostra propria ombra
and
con
to treat the
amore.
shadows with
Dire
love.
proprio perché mi voglio bene,
And
perché ti voglio bene, non ti vado a nutrire.
because I love myself and because I love you, I don't follow you.
permettersi di vedere quella parte.
But we need to allow ourselves to see that part and to welcome it and to accept it. In other words, we shouldn't hide from ourselves the various aspects of ourselves. Because sincerely, I don't think that none of us is just one thing or the other.
Cosa fa di una persona un bugiardo?
What makes
Cosa fa di una persona essere un bugiardo?
What makes a person a liar?
Le bugie, giusto?
Or telling lies, right?
Una persona che dice bugie teoricamente
A
sarebbe
person that tells lies
bugiardo.
is
Quante
a
bugie
liar.
devi dire per diventare
How
bugiardo?
many lies do you need to tell to become a liar?
Basta dire una bugia
Is
in quel
one lie
momento
enough
bugiardo mentre
and
dici
then
la
you
bugia,
become
o
a
anche
liar
dopo aver detto la bugia rimane
in that
bugiardo?
moment? Or does he stay a liar also
Se uno che ha
after he
detto una
said the lie?
bugia dopo anche rimane bugiardo, c'è qualcuno qui
So,
che non è un bugiardo?
is there anyone here that is not a liar?
C'è qualcuno qua che in tutta la sua vita non ha mai
Is
detto
there
una bugia?
anyone here that
Se qualcuno
in
mi
his
dice
whole
di sì,
life
dico, ecco
never
la bugia.
told a lie? If someone tells yes, then I say, okay, yeah, then here it is the lie.
Perciò quello che succede che cos'è? Però qualcuno direbbe no, io non sono un bugiardo. Sì, qualche bugia ho detto, ma non
Yes,
sono bugiardo.
I am not a liar. I've said a few lies, but I'm not a liar. Then,
Devi fare come una persona che ho visto una volta
how
che
would you define a
mi spiace
liar?
tanto, ma non era capace di dire una frase senza almeno due bugie dentro.
So there was this person, for
Era
example,
veramente
that was
una
not
patologia, una
able
patologia, una
to
cosa
say a sentence, tell a sentence without two lies inside of it. It
stravolgente.
was like a pathology.
Anche quando non c'era assolutamente nessuna necessità, doveva per forza
Also,
aggiungere
when there
qualcosa.
wasn't any necessity at
Questo
all,
non potrebbe, questo
he
è un
needed
bugiardo.
to add
Questo
some
è un
lie.
professionale
And
proprio.
this is a professional liar.
Che cosa determina che uno sia un
But what
bugiardo? Che dice
determines that one is a liar? That
e
it
uno secondo
tells a
posto
lot
di
of
un
lies.
bugiardo
Okay.
cos'è? Un sincero?
And so the opposite
Cosa fa di
of a
una
liar,
persona sincera?
what is a
È
sincere
stato
person?
sincero una volta, vale per sempre o deve essere ogni
So
qualvolta
if you have
sempre?
been sincere once, is it for forever
Prima di tutto
or for
qua
the present
manca un po' di
moment?
parità.
So we
Perché per essere
lack
bugiardo basta
parity
dire una
here
bugia, per
because
essere un sincero non basta
why
essere sincero una volta.
to become a liar you need to tell one lie, and to be sincere
La realtà,
it's not enough
quello
to
che
be
dobbiamo dire,
sincere
la
one
coerenza,
time.
il modo corretto è che nessuno
So the
è
coherence
né
is that
bugiardo
no
né
one
sincero.
is neither a
Tutti
liar
dicono
or
bugie
sincere.
e dicono cose vere.
Everyone tells lies and tells truthful things.
Non sei né cattivo né buono.
You're not bad, you're not good.
Fai delle cose
You do
coerenti,
some
amorevoli,
things that are
buone e fai
coherent,
delle cattiverie.
lovely,
Ma non sei una
and
persona
some things that are
cattiva,
bad, but you're
così
not
come non sei una
bad
persona buona.
or good.
Sei buono in quel contesto e
You're good
cattivo
in
in
that
quell'altro.
context and bad in that
O mi sbaglio?
context. Is it?
E qui c'è un punto fondamentale
And here there is a
innanzitutto di
fundamental
noi
point
verso
for
noi
selves,
stessi, poi
towards
conseguentemente di noi
ourselves,
verso gli altri.
first of all, and
Non
consequently
si
towards the
giudica
others.
la persona, ma
You
solo le
shouldn't
azioni.
judge the people, the person, but
Perché
the
noi non
actions,
siamo altro che un
because
flusso
we are
continuo di
nothing else but
pensieri,
a constant flow
emozioni,
of
scelte,
feelings,
sensazioni
thoughts, actions,
e
choices,
tante altre cose, però
and many other
è un
things.
flusso.
But it's
Ci sono tante
a
cose.
continuum, a flow.
Perciò nel momento in cui io vado a giudicare le
And so,
azioni, io posso dire questa azione
by
io sono contrario.
the time I judge
Quel comportamento non sono d'accordo, che sia in me
a
o che sia in
behavior
quell'altro.
or something that we don't agree
Quell'altro
with in
comportamento sono
ourselves or the other,
d'accordo
so
e sono
that
felice,
other
rijoisco di
behavior, I
quello,
agree with
che
it
sia
and
in
I
me o che
rejoice
sia in
with
un
it,
altro.
in myself or in the other.
E quando noi riusciamo
And when I
veramente a
am able
giudicare le azioni
to
e non la
really
persona,
judge the
quello
actions
che
and
accade è
not
che
the
la
person,
avversione
what happens
si
is that
rivolge
the
verso
aversion
l'azione e non verso la persona,
is redirected
verso il
towards
comportamento, verso l'attitudine.
the action,
Io non ho
the
nessun problema
attitude,
di dire
and not the
quell'attitudine, quel
person.
comportamento secondo me è sbagliato. Ma questo non vuol dire che io non ti voglia bene a te.
And so
Questo non vuol
this
dire che io
doesn't
non
mean
possa
that I
volerti bene
don't love you
o di volerti
if I
bene.
say that,
E questo non
if
è
I
una
judge
ragione
your
per farmi
action
dover per te avere
as wrong.
dell'odio o della rabbia o
But
del
this is not a
rancore o di
reason
quelle
to
cose
feel
sbagliate che
hatred
dicevo
or
prima.
anger or rancor towards you.
C'era una volta
Once there was quite a difficult situation that I lived. How can I say? Discrimination, situation of discrimination with violence, not physical. And so I lived this situation. And in the middle of that, as I was speaking in the context of the people that were discriminating me, doing kind of like a heavy thing that I won't get into details because it's not useful. One day we can talk about it. I don't want to hide it, but in this context it's not necessary. And so I speak with Lama Gangchen, and it tells me one thing that changes me completely. And he says, look at them. They are nothing else like as cows brought away by thieves. If you have many cows and a thief comes and steals the cows, he doesn't take them by the arms, he takes them by the leash, and so the cow just walks away on his own legs. But can you blame the cow that left? No, the cow didn't do anything, nothing against cows. But in this analogy, the cow is not seen as the most intelligent animal. That just follows where you bring her. And so these people that were behaving in this way, Lama Gangchen compared them to the cows brought away by thieves. Who is the thief?
Okay?
It's more like a general context where the person reacts to a general context and is brought away by that. And as he said that, it changed my perspective. Yes. So eventually, who is the thief that takes away the cows? Is ignorance, is our own limited view due to selfishness. So when we live more difficult situations, when there is someone that acts in a certain way, yes, on a practical level, we need to protect ourselves. If someone is spitting in my eye, I take some steps backwards. Next time I come close to you, I wear a mask. I don't know. I protect myself. Okay? The other thing is that if there is a situation that continues on a practical level, then I go there and try to stop the situation and face it. But it doesn't mean that I need to allow myself to take a path of anger, rancor, or violence, or anything like that. Because one, I am the one who lives the result of my actions, and secondly, I want to love myself, and I think these feelings are not good for me and also for the others. And third, if it's not in the difficult situations where we need to put in practice what we learn, then where is it? This remembers me of the 10th Pancha Lama, which we have depicted here. Was one of the masters of Lama Michel Rinpoche. An incredible person on many aspects. And he was in prison for like 18 years during the cultural... and he lived many difficult situations. And during that period, was 86 or 87 when Lama Gangchen went in Tibet. He got received by Panchen Lama together with our friend Franco Ceccarelli. And so from being an Italian from Milan, he asked the Panchen Lama something that a Tibetan would have never done. But how was for you being in prison? What have you done? How was it for you? And the Panchen Lama replied, for me, what have I done when I was in prison? When I got in prison, and when I saw that there I needed to put in practice everything that I learned, otherwise I would have been lost. And if I didn't put it into practice there, then where? Then what did I do? I meditated. I did some practices. I put into practice what I learned in many years. And when the Panchen Lama got out of prison, he wasn't a traumatized person. The people that met him say that he was a person with a tremendous strength, very balanced, but it didn't come because he was the Panchen Lama. Because he got trained for many years. Also in front of many difficult situations, he kept a sane direction. It's quite like when there was this old monk that was many years in prison. One day when he gets out, and he comes in India and is received from the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama asks him, what was the most difficult thing that you lived during all these years in prison? What was the worst thing for you? And he replied, the worst thing for me was to almost lose the compassion for what I love. So what I want to say is that there are people that do this. It's not that when you look at them in a state of bliss, it came from nowhere. It came because they applied a path, a direction, also in the times of great difficulty. It remembers me of when Lama Gangchen came from India in '63 after a crazy journey, and he crosses the border and dynamites explode from the road because they were building them, and the first encounter that he has with a guard of the army. Have you met any Chinese during your journey? And so the military slaps him in the face. Don't lie to me. And so when the Lama Gangchen received that, he said, oh, also here there is the samsara. But he never said a negative word towards the soldier. Oh, also here there is samsara. This cycle of suffering of samsara. And so the attitude that we choose to take depends on us. But if we ourselves don't welcome the difficult moments as an opportunity to put in practice what we learned, to be more patient, to cultivate our values and so on, the other side, the probability is to be overwhelmed by the adverse situation and to get into a loop of frustration, violence, envy, and so on. And the more you stay into that, the more it's difficult to get out, which doesn't mean that it's not possible, it's just more difficult. So when we talk about mind training, there is a part of cultivating love, reflecting on interdependence, the emptiness of intrinsic existence, loving oneself, loving the other. And there is a fundamental part, also others. One important part is transforming the adverse situations, conditions into the path. To not victimize ourselves, but to look alive with joy. Because also that bad situation is a great opportunity to grow. Because if I can grow, then I will feel better than before. I will contribute something beautiful to the world. I will have learned something beautiful. Then, if you ask me, would you rather that it didn't happen? Then probably I would say yes, but because that happened, then I need to face it. And I have the strength to do it. And we can all do this. So there was a time, many years, it was a very beautiful time where I felt like I didn't have problems, everything was going quite well. I was in Borobudur and I made a prayer at the end of this pilgrimage, and I said, there is something wrong. I feel like something is a bit too well. If tomorrow I have to help someone else to face their own problems, how can I do that if I myself didn't face these problems? And it was enough to ask. And from there, many things started, and that's when I look back now, I can assure you that the serenity that I have now to face different situations and also the many of the qualities that I have are the fruit of the way that I dealt with some situation that I was faced with. I speak of myself because I don't want to stay here and point the fingers to the others, but for each one of us is the same. And so from this point of view, one also thanks the things that are not so good. And this doesn't mean that we want these things to repeat, because we already learned some things. The point so is that whatever happens, we are able to face it. We need to have like a sort of pride. Okay, I'm ready. You try to take away my love. You can't do it. Try to take away my patience. You can't do it. I stay in this position. And here in the Bodhisattva Chairavata, the guide to the lifestyle of the Bodhisattva, there is a passage where Shantideva speaks against the mental poisons. Look, I'm stronger than you. Look, you can't take me. So you need like a self-esteem, like a virtuous pride. From where we look, if I can't do it, then who can? I received the teachings, I have a coherent view, I have the necessary resources, the experience, I have many things. I can do it. It's easy? No.
Anche se non è il miglior modo per finire, la vita non è facile.
Life is not easy. And as one of my masters was saying, it's better to put effort for something that brings good results rather than putting effort in something that brings bad results. Because when you lose the patience and react with aggressiveness, then does it need effort? Yes. So it depends on which effort where you want to put your effort. So it's like when a person comes to me and asking for advice, I give my advice, my idea, says, no, I can't do what you say because it's difficult. Okay, then I think about it, and I say another thing, no, this I don't like. Then I think about it, I give him a third option, do this. No, this I don't like and it's difficult. Then you know what, stay where you are.
è difficile e non mi
It's
piace,
difficult.
non è
I don't
necessario.
like. It's not an excuse.
Non lo voglio, va bene.
I don't want.
Ognuno è libero di fare ciò
It's
che vuole.
fine. Everyone is free to do
Non è libero
what they
dalle
want.
conseguenze delle proprie scelte, ma è
It's
libero
not
di fare ciò
free
che vuole.
from the consequences of his choices, but
Non
it's
vuole
free to do what
rispettare
you
la
want.
legge, possa non rispettare la legge, ma
If I
delle
don't want to
conseguenze.
respect the law, then I can do it, but there are consequences, for
Perciò,
example.
se non voglio un altro discorso, ma se
So,
voglio qualcosa,
to not want
è difficile e non è facile
is a
e non
question,
mi piace,
but
non
to
so come
not
fare, scusa.
want,
Che
to
tanto
not
siamo
like,
finiti per questo,
and to
fatica per
not
quello.
that it's difficult, then it's
Meglio
something
faticare
else.
per qualcosa che porta dei buoni
So it's
risultati e
better to
piano
put
piano
effort
poi
for
vedremo
something
che fa
that
qualcosa.
brings good results, and
Quindi
that
la
then
conclusione,
after time becomes less difficult.
abbiate fiducia di voi stessi,
So in
abbiamo
conclusion,
fiducia di noi stessi,
let's have trust in ourselves,
perché ce la possiamo
because
fare,
we
ce la
can
stiamo
do it.
facendo,
We are doing it,
ce la possiamo fare.
and we can do it.
Però mettiamo con
But
chiarezza,
we need
sempre di più, cosa voglio
to
coltivare,
put
cosa voglio
clarity
coltivare.
on what I
E
want
non
to
importa ciò che
nourish
accade, non è
more
una
and more,
ragione per
and what
coltivare
do I
ciò
want
che
to
mi fa male
abandon.
e abbandonare ciò che mi fa bene. Ok? E se noi riusciamo a mantenere
And if
questa
we
fermezza
can
anche in
manage
situazioni
to have this
apparentemente brutte, difficili, ce ne va
stability,
tantissimo da
also
insegnamenti.
the
Nel senso
then
che
also
uno che
the
vive
bad
qualcosa di
situations
difficile,
have a lot
questo
that
non
can
vuol
teach
dire
us.
che uno che vive una situazione
This doesn't
difficile
mean that
necessariamente cresce come persona.
someone that leaves a
Perché
bad
una volta
situation
che
necessarily grows
sta
as a
passando molte
person.
difficoltà, almeno crescerà. Non è detto.
That's not
Quando c'è una
for
situazione
granted.
avversa,
When
insomma,
there
si
is an
lascia
adverse
trascendere
situation,
e
if
non si può
someone
fare
is
altro che
overwhelmed by it,
coltivare altri
then
aspetti non belli.
can't do nothing else but
Non è
to
perché uno vive,
cultivate
soffre e vive una
bad,
situazione difficile
negative
che è migliore come
aspects.
persona. Non è un'opportunità, è un'opportunità che va colta,
It's not an opportunity
ma
in
non
its
può essere
own,
vissuta come tale. Però abbiamo
but it
questa
needs to be
capacità
lived as
di
an opportunity
trasformare le
to
circostanze
transform the
avverse.
adverse
Ce l'abbiamo tutti.
conditions into the path, and we all have this.
Mettiamolo in pratica
And
al
so
meglio delle
let's
nostre
put it into
capacità.
practice at the best of our own capacities.
Ultima cosa, celebriamo le cose belle della vita,
One last thing, let's remember to
le
celebrate
cose
the good things of
virtuose,
life,
le cose
the virtuous
positive,
things, the
anche quando
positive
riusciamo ad
things.
affrontare la situazione avversa in
Also,
modo sano,
when
celebriamo.
we manage to
Godiamoci le
face
cose virtuose.
the adverse situation in a sane way, let's also celebrate that.
Facciamo le nostre dediche.
Now let's make our dedications.
Namkar Chinle Chokchur Gepadang Losan Tempe Drume Sasum Ki Drove Munsel Taktu Ne Gyur Chi Kyawakuntu Yanda Lama Drame Chiki Pela Longche Chi Sada Lamge Yente Rabzone Dorje Change Kopa Nyurto Sho Nimo Dele Tsendele Nime Kuyan Dele Ninsen Takto Delekpe Kuncho Sumki Chingilo Kuncho Sumki Ngodrubutsol Kuncho Sumki Trashisho Simche Neba Chinyepa Nyurdu Nele Targyuru Chi Trove Nini Malupa Takto Chua Mebrasho Menamo Tudan Demba Dan Sanga Deju Drupa Ye Kandro Simbo La Sopa Ninje Simdan Dengyuru Chi Chonam Kuna Ludan Sem Dunga Neba Chinyepa Teda Dagi Sonam Ki Dega Gyatso Toparasho. In tutte le direzioni, qualunque corpo o mente malato e sofferente che ci sia, possano essere, tramite la forza dell'energia positiva, dei meriti qui generati, raggiungere un oceano di felicità e benessere. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Volevo fare una richiesta solo, molto brevemente, anche non era in programma, però abbiamo parlato delle interferenze. Quello che è importante è che quando ci sono le interferenze uno mantiene la propria linea, però vanno affrontate. Ok? E certe volte le interferenze, le situazioni avverse non sono così chiare come si manifestano, ci sono quelle a livello personale e quelle a livello collettivo. In questo momento ci sono un po' di interferenze manifestate a livello collettivo nostro come centro, come Sangha, come gruppo, e senza entrare in dettagli adesso. Per questo che faremo domani è giovedì, giusto, no? Quindi domani ci sarà una cerimonia, una pratica che faremo ad Albagnano appositamente per affrontare interferenze e poi domenica, dopo la presa di rifugio, ci sarà tutta la notte con la recitazione delle 21 tare. E quindi visto che sono aspetti che non riguardano una persona in particolare ma riguardano qualcosa più collettivo, sono tutti benvenuti a partecipare insieme in questo momento di preghiera, ok? Perciò per domani io vi do adesso molto velocemente la trasmissione del mantra, poi magari mandiamo in qualche gruppo messaggi per chi vuole recitarli domani insieme, ok? È il mantra di Siddhartha. Tayata om anale kasame bere some sarva buddha arishana arishde sarvatata gata ushnika siddhartha patre humpe hum mama humni Soha. Tayata om anale kasame bere some sarva buddha arishana arishde sarvatata gata ushnika siddhartha patre humpe hum mama humni Soha. Tayata om anale kasame bere some Sarva Buddha Adhisthana Adhisthide Sarvatata Gata Ushnisha Siddhata Patre Humpe Hum Mama Humni Soha. Okay. Grazie a tutti, buona serata e ci vediamo settimana prossima, se non ad Albagnano.